So I think we're good.
I think we're good. Let's get cracking.
All right. How do we start? Because
I think if we kick off with sort of, I guess, you know, you've got some great compass boxes behind you. I think it's really good to put these two whiskies into context. So we can just start talking about compass box and then see when we get on to.
Yeah, please. I think that'd be amazing. So, please, James, please tell me about compass box.
Well, as you and I'm sure most of your audience will know already, Compass Box is a great whiskey brand started by an American back in 2000. So Whiskey Wednesdays and Compass Box were very close in age. But what we've been trying to do is make the world of Scotch whiskey that little bit more interesting. When John Glaser started Compass Box back in 2000, so much of the whiskey landscape was very different. I'm sure you'll remember it. Getting hold of whiskey was, I guess, relatively straightforward, but the variety and the range that we see now, this has all been taking place over the last couple of decades, right? And what he saw when he started Compass Box was, especially in terms of blended Scotch, not a great deal of options in terms of real flavoursome Scotch whiskies. And as a category, blended Scotch was very traditional. It knew who its target audience was, and maybe it wasn't trying too hard to expand the franchise, if you will. But John saw a great opportunity to take the real beauty of blending, which is these diverse characters from all around Scotland, to create flavors which, as people so often say, are more than the sum of their parts. And we actually didn't start with blended Scotches at all. We started with a blended grain, hedonism. Is hedonism in your apartment at the moment?
It is not, but I have had it. So like that, yeah. That's a good one. So
this was a really unusual way to start a whiskey company, a very small whiskey company with what was at the time called a vatted grain, but a category that didn't actually exist until hedonism came along. And John's belief in the beauty of grain whiskey is central to then creating whiskies like Artist Blend and Glasgow Blend, which of course rely on grain whiskey and malt whiskey for their recipes and their character. But fast forward through the years and you start to add in vatted malts like Eleuthera. Our first blended Scotch was called a Sila, and we had to discontinue that from our range a couple of years ago, just because the ingredients that we need for that flavor profile is just very hard to come by, and the supply just ran out. This is the beauty and the frustration sometimes with blending. It's wonderful to see what's out there. It's brilliant to get a parcel and exploit it to the full. But sometimes there's a certain wistfulness and romance when you've got to wave that profile goodbye for now.
Yeah, I'm sure it's very difficult too, because as a blend, if you have a certain stock, the older it gets, the more mature the whiskey inside the barrel becomes. So you may be really great for a bottle that's released now, but if you're going to release it again in a year and a half, that whiskey's already changed, correct? It's really hard. So do you guys keep a lot of that? Like, are you preparing for that, or are you like, oh, we know the formula for the whiskey up to that point, or how does that work for you guys?
Of course. So as didn't introduce my part in the business, I'm one of the whiskey makers, and so that is definitely one of my roles, is to keep a track of what we do actually have on tap, if you like, make sure that process of monitoring it is consistent. But we're also in a really great position where we've got lots of loyal customers who come back time and again for Artist Blend and Glasgow Blend, and all of the products in our range, whether it's Hedonism, Spice Tree, The Story of the Spaniard, whether it's Peat Monster, for example, as well. So we know year to year roughly how much we need to source. And we're getting pretty good at going through whiskies of, say, 10 or 12 years of age, and then we'll use those this year, and then the rest of the stuff, we can see it down the pipe. That's going to be 12 or 10 or 12 in the next year. And it's just moving through that stock in a way that's nice and gentle. For sure, though, sometimes you will draw from the same parcel over many years, and it's just a case of maybe dialing it back if it's in really active casks, and that real pep and spice and richness is maybe more than it would normally be when it was first used at a certain percentage. So blending is about balance, and it's about finding the personality within each component whiskies that you want to showcase. And sometimes you've got to know a parcel really well, but its personality is maybe getting a little overbearing, and you just need to dial it back. It's just like controlling a good dinner party, right? I think it's time you had a cigarette.
I'm out for you.
Yeah, but when it comes to Artist Blend and Glasgow Blend, we've got such a wealth of options, and it'll be great to let's start maybe tasting Artist Blend, and I really see Artist Blend as a little bit of a younger brother to a Siler almost. A Siler taking malt whiskies and grain whiskies, usually aged in American oak, designed to really enhance the fruitiness of the spirit within. And Artist Blend has been created with this same fruity ethos in mind. There's a brilliant book. It's short, been reprinted a couple of years ago, so it should be really easy to find. It's called Whiskey, and it's by a writer called Aeneas MacDonald. That's not his real name, but it was published in 1930. And he talks about blended Scotch whisky quite a lot in the book. And John was reading through this, and he noticed there was a paragraph midway through where he talks about the different tastes for blended Scotch whisky. The beauty of blends is their versatility. You can tailor make them to particular times of day, particular ways of enjoying them as well. And he noticed that Edinburgh liked a really full-bodied, punchy whiskey, but Glasgow was even richer, even more full-bodied. And we thought this was a brilliant dualism that we could play with. And that's why there are two whiskies that come in this slightly dumpier bottle. Still part of the Compass Box, obviously, identity, but we have changed the labels. So these two whiskies have been around since, in the case of Artist Blend 2011, and in the case of Glasgow Blend 2014. But they had different looking labels, and they didn't have the Compass Box logo at the top. But we felt it was time to make everybody understand that they are still made by us, and we're hoping that they will have a different sort of identity now. We've changed the labels so that they're a bit cleaner, a bit clearer. They used to say Great King Street just along the middle. So both Artist Blend and Glasgow Blend, they had Great King Street in white text on the black background. And we felt it was time to move on from that and give them exactly, Tim. That's precisely what we're talking about. So we wanted to give them their own identity. We wanted to make Artist Blend and Glasgow Blend even more distinct. And we felt it was a great opportunity to come back to this Aeneas MacDonald quote, looking at the differences between different cities and how their drinkers of whiskey responded to different flavor profiles. So with Artist Blend, incredibly fruity, there's a gorgeous toffee creamy note, but we also use whiskies finished in Palo Cortado sherry casks. And something that we're quite famous for is whiskies finished in new American oak barrels with new toasted French oak heads. So these really come to the fore in the spice tree, but we use them in so many of our products because they add that little bit of difference in terms of an extra texture on the palate, but also beautiful sweet spiciness. And it's when you taste Artist Blend, this for me is when just the sheer magic of blended Scotch whisky comes to the fore. I'm a real blend evangelist. I think malt and grain whiskies together, they have this exquisite delivery. The way the flavors line up one after another, and then they just flow through. For almost all of the whiskies in here have been aging in first fill American oak ex-Bourbon barrels. And the grain whiskey, between 10, 11 years of age, depending on which batch you've got, from the Cameron Bridge Distillery in Fife. And this is what's delivering that beautiful silkiness. And allowing the malts to really do their thing.
Yeah, no, and again, this is just beautiful. I love this one. You're right, because it's got that fruitiness. You do get that grain and the malt in there, and then that too. People hear Scotch and they immediately think peat, and you don't have that overwhelming peatness to this. It's just gorgeous. Like this is just a good, this is a summer afternoon day drinking sipper. Like this is just sitting at the pub, just drinking it and having It's fruity, it's smooth, I hate the word smooth, but it just is like it's just mellow. It's not a harsh bite to it. It just is just one of those things that it just this is a sit outside on a Tuesday afternoon, watch people go by wherever city you're in, and just oh, it's just so good. Like this is just absolutely amazing.
Very well said. I really agree with you, and we're all looking forward to getting back to the pub. Here in the UK, you know, we can go to pubs which have outdoor seating, and you're right. As the weather improves, this is where Artist Blend really comes into its own. The Edinburgh connection, it deepens when you think about, and that's why we've got an artist on the label to cement this theme: Edinburgh's natural creativity. And I think with Artist Blend's vibrancy and its fruitiness, this for me just does taste like walking up the Royal Mile in Edinburgh in August, which is, as anyone who's been to the capital of Scotland in that month will know, there's a lot going on. It's the festival, it's the fringe, there's madness everywhere you look. It's super exciting. And this really is that whiskey to complement that mood. You know, it's bright, it's out in the open, it's experimental, it's trying new things.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's adventurous. It doesn't wherever you turn. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but yeah, it's like wherever you turn, there's something cool happening, and that's the way with the like every sip you get just something a little bit more different, and just it just keeps opening up over and over and over again. Now, are you a water guy, like to open up your whiskey, or do you? How would you recommend drinking this? Like,
well, we have so many recommendations when it comes to drinking Artist Blend and Glasgow Blend, and you can find them on our website and our social media channels as well. We're really active on Instagram especially, and we're always giving you different ways to drink. In fact, we have been running a bartender competition. It's called The Circle. It's had 2 iterations, 2018 and 2019. And the winners of both those competitions have actually been showing their preferred ways to drink this whiskey. So definitely check us out on Instagram and see Rosie Mitchell from Three Sheets in London. She was the winner in 2018. And Mannequin Monaghan, he's from Leeds, and he's representing some Glasgow Blend drinks as well. So they've got lots of adventurous and simple ways to enjoy it. For me, I just love this whiskey with a splash of water. As you say, it opens things up a little bit more. You really start to get the oiliness of the malts coming through. So this is a whiskey which is a combination of malt whiskey and grain whiskey, but it's inspired by the golden age of blending, which we feel was the end of the 19th century and into the beginning of the 20th. So just before the time Aeneas MacDonald was writing with whiskey. And the vogue back then was for really a high percentage of malt whiskies in the recipes. So where we try and pitch things is a minimum of 50% malt whiskey, and in both of these whiskies. The way it works out, it's usually about 55% in the new recipe for Artist Blend. And we also try and push up to 65% malt whiskey in Glasgow Blend. The grain is still giving you all of that succulence and that sweetness and that silkiness. But the malt whiskies, especially when you start to dilute this, that's when they really start to appear. We've got some beautiful distillates from the Clynelish distillery up in Sutherland, and one other malt whiskey which I'm getting really a fan of, the Balmenic distillery in Speyside. It's an old style plant, and it delivers this beautiful punchy apple flavor.
oh, nice.
Which just works so well in this composition.
Absolutely. This is wonderful. This is just, and again, the only thing that's changed on both of them is just the bottle, correct? The formula has not changed.
So with Artist Blend, we have made a slight adjustment. And if you go onto our website, all of the information is up there about exactly what's been going into the bottles. But the biggest change, as you say, is changing the label from that Edwardian style, Victorian etched street front in Edinburgh to give them their own distinct individual personalities with the artist icon. And then, as we'll talk about with Glasgow, the Wellington statue outside the Gallery of Modern Art. What we're always trying to achieve with both of these whiskies is, in the case of Artist Blend, that vibrant fruitiness, and then for Glasgow Blend, it's that sherried smokiness. And we will change the recipes every now and again to achieve that. Blending is one of those great things. People always ask you what's in stuff. And in some ways that can be really interesting, because as you see over time, you'll see the recipes move, but we do that to keep the taste the same. It's a really strange thing. But yeah, the exact percentages of different components will change. Sometimes the components will change. So yeah, for Artist Blend, used to be a lot more of the Kleinlich component. What we decided to do is increase the fragrance with the Linkwood distillery and the Balmenic that I talked about. So still really rich and fruity and waxy, but we're getting it from a few different sources now. So you touched on that fruitiness, and you touched on that lack of smoke, and this is why these are a pair. You know, why should any one Scotch whiskey represent the flavors of Scotland? You can't really do that. The smoke being such a powerful flavor, it needs to have its own space. It needs to have its own city, and then across on the other side, you've got the fruity clearness of Edinburgh and Artist Blend. But from Edinburgh, Scotland's capital, to Scotland's biggest city, Glasgow, and a place very close to my heart. This probably is the Compass Box expression I drink the most. I love the Artist Blend style, and certainly pre-dinner, this is what I will turn to. But the versatility of Glasgow Blend, it works after dinner because it's got the body. It even works before dinner in a cocktail because of the grain whiskey helping to mellow everything out. But it's just a balance in general. It's the balance of the sherried malt whiskies that we're using, and the smoky malt whiskies as well. And like I said earlier, this came to the range a little bit later, and this is the one where Aeneas MacDonald sort of listed the flavors a little bit more explicitly, and it talks about fuller-bodied, richer whiskies. And if you're in the West, that means smoke. It's a short plain hop from Glasgow to Islay, and that's where we're drawing the smoky whiskey from this.
But it's not overpowering on the nose though. It's not like, because again, I think I get a little bit more of that sherry out of it than anything.
Absolutely. This Glasgow Blend for me is the whiskey which is most prone to evolving in the glass, because you've got so much in there. You've got the grain at 35% roughly. You've got about 30% to 35% is malt whiskey, which has been aged in the sherry casks. And then anywhere between 17 and about 20%, depending on the batch, is the peated Islay single malt. And so depending on how you're drinking it, whether with ice or with water, or just even in a glass and breathing into the air, you keep going back to this, and you'll start to see differences. You'll start to notice, well, yeah, maybe the smoke's taking a backseat now. But if you go back to Artist Blend, take a sip of that, and then you go to Glasgow, boom, that's where the smoke gets you. So we love how rich we can take blended Scotch whiskey with Glasgow Blend. They're two cities which are really complementary in character, but the contrasts are there to be celebrated too. There's a little bit of waxiness to this one as well. So we do still use a tiny bit of Kleinlich. Around about 10% of the recipe is Kleinlich single malt from first fill bourbon barrels. And that does help just to knit together all of these sometimes warring factions. Peat and sherry, both very, very strong flavors. And they need a little bit of help gelling sometimes. But I just think the way the peat seasons the sherry, it just makes it really quite. I think on our official tasting notes, we talk about like coal smoke and like an oily, almost industrial kind of quality. It's just beautiful. It's one of those things that is maybe not the most. It's not where you'd maybe start people on their whiskey journey, but certainly as you start to explore the wealth of styles Scotland makes, Glasgow Blend is the epitome of the richer, heavier, rounder spirits made in Scotland.
Yeah, I don't know. Now that you said industrial, now I get this, and it's not a bad it's not a bad smell. Like it's just like a memory. Like it takes me back to like my grandpa's woodshed. Like it's old, it's a little musty. There's the metal from the tools. Like you're getting that, but like that's what this is. This is like just that history, if you will. Like there's just stuff has been here kind of thing. Like I guess that's what I'm getting. Like I'm not saying like it's not bad. It's not a bad smell in any way. It is just I get like this is like he'd say almost like a defining moment whiskey. Like this is just one of those things where Because like too, even jumping back and forth from smelling the artist blend and then smelling this, like you get that. Like it's just like this is like a bam, this happened kind of thing, and like that's oh, taste it. So it's just I gotta.
Yeah, the way that we try and evolve Glasgow blend bit by bit is as I say, trying to balance that sherry and the smoke, and the smoke is such a, you know, you talked about Grandpa's woodshed. For me as well, there's a certain nostalgia to smokiness. I think it is one of the first smells that we kind of register when we're really young. And I know when I first came to smoky Scotch whiskey, it was a bit of a shock because I didn't encounter certainly any drinks that had this kind of aroma and flavor. But it's one of those that it's that compelling character. Compelling character is something that's very important to us at Compass Box. And we try and cram it into every single thing that we make. And we're really fortunate that Scotch whiskey is such a diverse beast, and compelling character comes in so many different forms. And I think this is why these two whiskies work so well together, and why I'm loving tasting together with people such as you, Tim, because those contrasts start to appear. But every time I come to Glasgow Blend, I can find something a little bit different, and that smoky quality, I think, is part of that. I think for me, I think about Glasgow, and I think about the storm clouds coming in from the west and driving through the city, and I think about Central Station late at night, the cars, the trains. It has this brilliant blend of the wilds and the urban, and I think for me that's why I drink Glasgow Blend so much. It takes me back to the city in a way that's obviously very, very personal. Different people visiting Glasgow will get different sides of it, but I guess what I just love is the way you start to see time evolving as well, and the smoky character in particular from this distillery. So we can't really use the name of it, but it's known in whiskey circles as Williamson, when you can't use the distillery name too much.
Gotcha.
That has a beautiful barbecue, iodine, medicinal quality to it. And I think when you make that very savory character play against the rich, fruity, almost fruitcake-like sweetness of the malts that we've aged in sherry casks, the contrast is bewitching, I think.
So, like for you, is this like a first drink of the night, or like a last drink of the night kind of, or like throughout the night kind of thing?
It really is a throughout the night for me.
Okay.
Like I say, I love blended Scotch. For me, has a certain meditative quality to it. The way it slowly unravels itself for you. If you're just having that single solitary dram at the end of the day, and you want to take the weight off your feet. You just want to see a little bit of a show. I think the way that the grains and the malts start to dance around one another as you drink, and as the level in the glass goes down, I love that. In Glasgow Blend, I think it has the sweetness to stand up at first. It has the softness as well. But I can definitely return to this later in the evening, because that smokiness starts to take the lead a bit more for me, especially if I'm outdoors and drinking in London right now. You've got little other choice, but it is a lovely way to experience I keep coming back to it, the diversity of styles that Scotland has. But Glasgow Blend, in terms of the cocktail thing, really versatile too. So there's a cocktail I love. It's a riff on the Bobby Burns. It is the Bobby Burns, but it's a riff on the on Manhattan or the Rob Roy, just with a little bar spoon of Benedictine, just to emphasize that herbal quality.
All right.
And for me, it's a really great. It's not something that's in everybody's cabinets, but if you're missing a bottle of Benedictine, or you do have one, get it out, because it's a super little addition. And what I love about cocktails is blending, but with a mixing glass or a cocktail.
Right.
It's the same process. But that is a delicious way to experience this whiskey. There's the sweet vermouth element of the cocktail obviously works really well with the sherry. The Benedictine just pulls out a little bit of that sweet spiciness. We do use some whiskies in the French oak custom casks for this as well. And I think that the Benedictine just pulls out flavor note for everybody to enjoy. But then, of course, the smoke is giving it that beautiful savory quality too. So it's a sweet drink overall, but I think a bit like hops in beer, it just gives that balancing dryness, and it makes it very drinkable. Very drinkable.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like again, for me, because it's not over smoky, so like that smoke is just another one of those layer components in a really great meal kind of thing. Is like you don't get it right off the bat either. It's kind of like for me that smoke is the finish. So it's because again, you don't get it on the nose, and then I get a lot of the sherry, which is just amazing because I like sherry, and then you just get like then at the very end it's kind of that smokiness just hits, and it's not a punch in the face kind of thing. It's just a very elegant like fluff, if you will, or layering of the smoke.
Totally, and that again is the beauty of blending, and it's what we set out to achieve. You know, we don't want anything too punchy and too argumentative, I guess. The great thing about Glasgow is that gentle humor that just draws you in, and then you get the punchline, and it's always hilarious.
Yeah.
But you're right, the smoke just rolls through.
Yeah.
And that I think is the mark of a compelling whiskey, something that makes you go, oh, I didn't know that was locked in this glass.
Yeah.
I'm going to come back. I'm going to experience that again. But I think as well that there's so much smoky whiskey these days, and lots of people do smoky whiskey really, really well. We just think that when it comes to a blending component, there's so many ways you can twist it and turn it, and so many ways you can surprise people with it too, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, again, you guys definitely do have that category of smoke. So I mean,
yes.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely go that route. So, but yeah, I think there's just something like this is like the artist blend was more of like our summer adventure time, and then for me, like Glasgow is more of like we're sitting on the porch watching the thunderstorm roll in off the lake or something along those lines. Like it's just coming in off the ocean and you're just watching it like barrel up over. So like that's because you just keep
completely, yeah. I agree with you. I think the labels kind of tell that story a little bit. The light cream of Artist Blend. This is really middle of the day. Full sunlight, and then you start to get into that sunset. Almost think about the year. This is summer. This is autumn or into winter, and you start to think about drinking things in different ways. And Compass Box in general, we like to experiment, and whether that's with how we make our whiskies or how we enjoy them. I think both can be so stimulating, and we always try and think of ways we can share these with people. And it's been fantastic to talk to you, and I'm sure all the folks who join you for Whiskey Wednesdays. I hope if they've not tried these before, they'll seek them out.
Oh, we'll make sure that they try them because this is
good stuff. But yeah, the versatility of blended Scotch is part of its charm. And yeah, these are just such amenable whiskies, just such easy whiskies to love and to get to know. And yeah, I hope Whiskey Wednesday will turn a few people on to these whiskies if they've not had them already.
I hope so too, and I'm pretty sure we will because I know when I posted the photo of the bottles, everybody was really excited about the new look, and I'm sure now getting to hear everybody getting to hear you talk about stuff is just they'll love that. So I think this is just amazing. So thank you so much for your time and walking me through these beautiful things. So as I pour another.
No, it's absolutely my pleasure, and yeah, it is worth reiterating. These are the same whiskies, just with a slightly different label. So Glasgow Blend, actually, it's a really good point. The very first Glasgow Blend, when it was launched in 2014, it actually had the traffic cone statue on the label. We did away with it for subsequent releases, but we've decided to bring it back because it really is a symbol of Glasgow's mischievous character. This very, very proud, very serious statue, which is now never without its slightly beaten up traffic cone. It's really lovely. And yeah, I think that is such such a lovely thing to think about when we think of Scotland. And sometimes to think about the the classic symbols, but these are two cities with proud histories, but such creative presence as well, and that's what we're trying to celebrate with both of these whiskies, Artist Blend and Glasgow Blend.
I do like the Artist Blend now. Like that is just a proper sipper. So like that is just something that's really nice that's just an adventurous whiskey. I love that. Like it's not something that you would taste and go, oh yeah, that's Scottish whiskey or what. Like you can't just sip and be like, oh no thanks, I don't like that kind of thing, because you get that from a lot of people where they'll be like, oh no, Pete, I don't like that or whatever, and you're like, just try it and you'll whatever. And but yeah, like to me, like that is just it's not a whiskey you can be like, oh yeah, that's from, and you're like, no, because there's just so much in there. So like that's I'm totally down. I think that the blend is just definitely a nice, just proper whiskey to be like. It's a perfect time of year to be drinking that. So
completely agree. Yeah, I think that's something that doesn't always get enough airtime. I think it's how our tastes change and our preferences change as the year continues and develops. And I think that's actually a really lovely thing. I think it helps remind us that time passes and things progress, and actually it helps you build some traditions as well. And
agreed.
It gives you the opportunity to pull into the drinks cabinet and get different things on the table. I think that's fantastic.
Agreed. Like no one wants to be like drinking fruit or Christmas cake 24/7 when it's when it's like 23 degrees out and you don't want Christmas cake. You want light, refreshing kind of thing. So yeah, like that's definitely throughout the year and then again it's just nice to come back to and be like, it's spring or it's summer. Like it's just one of those things. So yeah, I'm right there with you. I love that kind of like tradition and like that feeling of just excitement to being like, oh, I had my first highball or whatever, and you're like, springtime. Like it's just it's that time of year again. Yeah, both of them are outstanding, and I mean, I love the redesign, and I love the cheekiness of the statue with the cone, and it just I think it plays well with the Compass Box ethos. So I think that's just, I mean, just again, two really great sippers to have in your collection. So
thank you. Well, I really appreciate you having us on. It's a pleasure. Well, first of all, to meet you, and yeah, I don't come to New York too often, but I will let you know when I am there.
Please. I mean, again, if you're ever in the city, please let me know. And I do plan on being in London very soon. So I have no idea when, but like it's just I have friends there that I need to go visit, and that you got Milroy's and like they're open, and it just makes me very, very jealous, and I get a lot of FOMO of like the proofing room is having cocktails, and I'm sitting here like I haven't been to London in almost 2 years, and I see a bunch of friends out and about just enjoying a good time, and it just gives me a really wicked case of FOMO. So if I'm in London, I'm gonna come look you up. So
fantastic.
But and then same if you're in New York, let me know. I got some great places that serve some Compass Box, so we can go ahead and show you around town. So
can't come soon enough, Tim. Can't come soon enough.
Let me pour just real quick so I can say goodbye. Otherwise, toasting on an empty glass. Well, James, thank you so much for walking me through the Compass Box. I really appreciate your time, and so hopefully drinking in person.
Pleasure's all mine, Tim. Yeah, thanks.
Cheers.
Buddy.
Bye-bye.